All right, guys. So this story right here is really something. So let me break this down for you. Khanna came out, I want to say about a week ago, and he said in no uncertain terms, Dianne Feinstein should resign, and she should resign immediately. Now, why did he say that? Is it because of she has a horrible neoliberal record? She's from a very liberal state, California, but she's one of the more conservative Democrats in the Senate, so she doesn't really represent the interests. No, he didn't even make that argument, which I think would have been a fair argument, by the way, but he didn't even make that argument. There was an article that came out which said, look, Dianne Feinstein has missed a tremendous number of votes. And in fact, Biden has been putting a lot of judges on the bench for a while, but it hit a roadblock now. It hit a brick wall because Dianne Feinstein is gone and they need her vote in order to keep approving judges. So, I mean, this is a super, super important issue. We don't talk about it nearly as much as we should, but the fact of the matter is, if you can control the judiciary, if you could have more reasonable people on the judiciary, that has reverberating effects for the rest of the country where good policy is much more likely to be implemented or allowed because you have reasonable judges who are not right-wing extremists and who won't snuff everything out in the crib, right? So it's a super important issue. Biden was actually doing a decent job at a tremendous clip. He was putting, more liberal judges on the bench. But now Dianne Feinstein is gonzo because she has, extreme cognitive issues. And so Khanna saw the article and finally spoke up and said, look, you got to step down. It's nothing against you personally, but this has huge consequences. It sort of reminds me of the Ruth Bader Ginsburg debate, right? When everybody was like, hey, man, you should step down. You had pancreatic cancer. And, she way outlived like the actuary tables for if you have pancreatic cancer. It's one of the worst kinds of cancer. She lived very long, but she refused to step down at the end of Obama's time in office. And then what happened? She passed away under Trump. Trump got to appoint somebody to fill her seat. It was keep it real. Regardless of what you think of her, if you think she's a hero or whatever, her selfishness absolutely hurt the country. Absolutely did. Okay, so Khanna chimes in and says, look, you got to step down. This is crazy. Well, guess what? Nancy Pelosi and a gaggle of corporate Democrat idiots chime in and they go, oh, right, this is sexism. This is misogyny. This is unacceptable. Khanna hates women. All right, so let me walk you through this. Representative Khanna dismissed comments by Nancy Pelosi accusing those calling for 89-year-old Senator Dianne Feinstein to step down of being sexist. Quote, this has nothing to do with gender, Khanna said Thursday. When asked about Pelosi's comments, Khanna was the first Democrat in Congress to call for the resignation of Feinstein, who has missed dozens of votes after being diagnosed with shingles in early March. After Khanna was joined by other House Democrats, Pelosi came to Feinstein's defense. Quote, I don't know what political agendas are at work that are going after Senator Feinstein in that way, Pelosi told reporters on Wednesday. I've never seen them go after a man who was sick in the Senate in that way. Are you kidding me? Of course there's been examples of really, really old men where people were like, hey, dog, you should probably step down. What's that guy's name? Robert Byrd. He's a great example. I mean, even today, Chuck Grassley. Right? Like, there are plenty of people who are not really there anymore. Joe Biden, people talk about Joe Biden. Hey, cognitively, you're not really there. You might want to step aside, not run again. So this is just a factually incorrect point. It's just wrong. Senator Chris Murphy echoed Pelosi during an appearance Thursday on MSNBC, calling it interesting that male senators have not been called on to resign during extended absences from the chamber. Feinstein has resisted the calls for her resignation while she recovers at home. She did ask to be temporarily removed from the Senate Judiciary Committee, where Democrats were upset her absence was holding up Biden's judicial appointments. Khanna earlier this week thanked Feinstein for a lifetime of public service, but added that it is obvious she can no longer fulfill her duties. She should know when it's time to step aside, Khanna said. It's not the first time Democrats have voiced concern about Feinstein's health. In April 2022, 4 Democratic officials, including 3 senators, said her cognitive decline is too severe for her to finish her term. One member said they have known her for 15 years and had to reintroduce themselves during meetings. Huh? So that's how much she's lost it. That's how much her brain is not working. That's an astonishing fact, man. She's out in La La Land. Now, look, nobody's blaming her for that. You get old. When you get old, things happen. But you got to be responsible, and you got to be reasonable, and you got to realize this isn't about you. This is about the country. Khanna also implied Pelosi has a political interest in Feinstein serving out the rest of her term, which would prevent Governor Gavin Newsom from appointing a temporary replacement of his choosing. I know she's very much for Adam Schiff getting that seat, but I don't question people's political motives, Khanna said. This is simply about whether someone can do their jobs. So, in other words, the argument he's making there is Nancy Pelosi is on the record, has come out and said, I would support Feinstein if she ran again for office. Crazy. But she doesn't, and she's not, by the way. I would vote for Adam Schiff. And so she's kind of endorsed Adam Schiff. She's afraid if Feinstein steps down early, then Gavin Newsom would get to appoint a replacement until the next election. And, the way it would probably work is whoever he picks immediately becomes the favorite for the next election. And so for whatever reason, she's concerned that Newsom wouldn't pick Schiff. And so that's probably one of the reasons why she wants Feinstein to hang on. Like, hey, stay in there. I don't want Newsom to pick somebody I don't want. And that person becomes the favorite. Just hang in there. And then, hopefully Adam Schiff will take your seat later on. So there's all this politicking that's going on. But notice how disingenuous, dishonest, and how much of a smear this is. Khanna makes the most reasonable point in the world that any normal American would agree with, and they go right to, oh, you just hate women. You're just sexist. Look, keep it real. This is why there's a lot of decent people who don't want to get involved in politics, because of stuff like this. You get your name dragged through the mud in a vicious, nonchalant way when you're just stating something that's totally obvious to everybody. Well, look, credit on this one to Ro Khanna, because he really is just saying the quiet part out loud. Like, everybody knows this to be true. But he has the balls to say it, and he's taking political heat as a result of it. And by the way, for Pelosi to take a shot at him, like, I don't know what political agenda he has. He's not running for the seat. There was speculation originally that he might run for the Senate seat, the open Senate seat in California. He's not running for the seat. So what political agenda are you talking about? The political agenda is, I want to get more liberal judges, on the court. That is the correct agenda to have. That is actually caring about not just yourself, but the country. They would be unfamiliar with that. Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein would be unfamiliar with that because they're used to serving their donors, as we've seen time and time and time again. So Ro Khanna is correct. Vicious smear campaign against him, and you hate to see it. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take $0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.